Hey guys, welcome back to Mind Your Conversions, brought to you by Fibr. If you're new here, this is where we break down the art and science of marketing with our hosts, Liv and Max. They will help you understand marketing better, explore fresh strategies, and most importantly, drive higher conversions. So whether you're a seasoned pro, or even if you're just getting started, you're at the right place.
Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going to be doing a deep dive into Shopify A/B testing. And you found some seriously interesting material from Fibr AI for us to go over. And I know some of you out there are already like total e-commerce pros, but the stuff that they talk about here is pretty next level. We're talking about finding those hidden profit boosts that most Shopify stores are just missing out on. Like why the color of your button can literally make or break a sale.
Yeah, it's crazy. Fibr AI really stresses how even like tiny changes can have a huge impact on your bottom line. They even have these case studies where just changing a headline, just the headline, led to a 20% jump in revenue.
Wait, 20%? That's nuts. So before we go any further, just to make sure everyone's on the same page here, can you just give us like a quick explanation of what Shopify A/B testing is and like why it's so important for, someone who wants to be successful with e-commerce?
Yeah, of course. So basically, A/B testing is like running a science experiment on your Shopify store. You create two versions of something, like let's say it's your product page, and there's just one tiny difference between them. Like maybe the add to cart button is blue on one and then red on the other. And then you show those two different versions to different groups of visitors, and you track which one does better.
So instead of just guessing what might work, you're using data to actually make decisions.
Exactly. And that's where Fibr AI really comes in with this totally unique approach, right? They've analyzed thousands of Shopify stores, and they have some pretty surprising insights about A/B testing.
Oh yeah, speaking of surprising, there was this one piece of advice they gave that really stood out to me. They said to avoid A/B testing if your conversions are already high. And like, that kind of seems counterintuitive, doesn't it?
It totally goes against like the common wisdom. But there is a reason behind it. One of the biggest things they talk about is how you need enough traffic to your site to get results that are actually statistically significant. It's like, think about flipping a coin. You flip it 10 times and maybe you get 7 heads. But does that really mean that the coin is biased? Probably not. You need way more flips to be sure.
So with A/B testing, you need enough people visiting your store to know that the results aren't just like random chance, right? Okay, so how many visitors are we talking about here?
Yeah, so Fibr AI says that for a statistically significant result, you usually need at least 16,800 visitors.
16,800. Wow, that's a lot of coin flips. So I guess for stores that don't have that much traffic yet, A/B testing might not be the best use of their time.
Exactly. And another thing Fibr AI really emphasizes is the importance of having a specific problem to solve before you even start thinking about A/B testing. They say you shouldn't just randomly test things because it's kind of like wandering around in a dark room flipping light switches, right? You might find the right one eventually, but it's going to take you a lot longer and you might bump into some stuff on the way.
Ooh, I like that analogy. Okay, so basically, before you even start A/B testing, you need to figure out, like, what are the areas of your store that need improvement? Is it that people are bouncing off your product page too quickly, or maybe they're abandoning their carts before they get to checkout?
Right, exactly. They actually call it diagnosing the patient before you give them any medicine, which is a pretty good way to think about it.
Yeah.
And once you've figured out, what those pain points are, Fibr AI has this really interesting take on when you should and shouldn't use A/B testing.
You're talking about that advice to not test if your conversions are already high, right? I'm really curious about that because, shouldn't we always be trying to improve? Shouldn't we always be testing things?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and Fibr AI actually addresses that directly. What's super fascinating is that they bring in like a psychological element to this. They say that constantly testing, even when things are going well, can actually backfire. You could mess up something that's already working and end up making things worse.
So it's like there's this balance, right? Knowing when to like step back and when to kind of push forward and try to optimize more.
Exactly. It's all about being strategic with your A/B testing. Focus on the areas where you see those clear opportunities for improvement, where you have a specific problem that you want to solve. Don't just test for the sake of testing.
All right, so we have a pretty good idea now about when to A/B test and when to maybe hold back a little bit. So let's get into like the nitty-gritty here. Can you walk us through like what are the steps to actually setting up and running an A/B test on Shopify?
Of course. Fibr AI breaks the whole process down into these really clear steps, and it all starts with having a hypothesis. So, like, let's say you've noticed that you're having a lot of people abandoning their carts. Okay, so your hypothesis might be, if I add a guarantee that says people can return their items within 30 days, then I can reduce cart abandonment by 5%.
So you're starting with a clear goal in mind. You're not just like throwing things on a wall and seeing what sticks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you need to choose the right tools for the job. Shopify has its own A/B testing tools, and there's always Google Analytics. But Fibr AI, and this might surprise you, they actually recommend using their own platform. And get this, it's completely free. And they say it integrates seamlessly with Shopify and gives you all the data you need to actually make informed decisions.
Free is always good. I like that. All right. So you've got your hypothesis. You've picked your tool. What's next? What's the next step in our Shopify A/B testing journey here?
Okay, now this is the fun part. Now you get to design your variations. So what are you going to change? Are you going to change the text on the button? Are you going to change the colors on the page? Are you going to change the way your product descriptions are laid out? Yeah. There are tons of possibilities.
I can just imagine our listeners right now looking at their Shopify store and thinking, okay, what can I tweak? What can I play around with? So going back to that cart abandonment example, maybe they could test different versions of that guarantee message, like how it's worded, or like experiment with add and trust badges or testimonials near that add to cart button.
Exactly, yeah. And the important thing is, when you're designing those different variations, keep everything else the same. You don't want to change a bunch of things at once, because then you won't know what's actually making a difference. You want to be able to say, okay, this one thing I changed led to this change in my results.
Right, so no redesigning your whole website in the middle of the test. Focus on one thing at a time. So, okay, you've got your variations all set up. What happens next?
Now it's time to unleash your test. So your A/B testing tool is going to automatically split your traffic between the original version of whatever it is you're testing, which is called the control, and then that new variation you made. And you want to keep track of your key metrics, things like bounce rate, cart abandonment, and of course conversions. And remember, like we talked about before, you got to let the test run long enough to get statistically significant results. Fibr AI suggests at least 7 to 14 days.
So patience is a virtue here, especially when it comes to e-commerce. Don't go in there and start messing with the test once it's live, no matter how tempting it is.
Right. Even a little tweak could change the results, and then you might get data that's not accurate.
So, okay, the test is done. We've got all this data. What do we do now?
Now it's time for the moment of truth. You've got to analyze the results. This is where those really juicy insights come in. And you're not just looking at which version did better. Did A do better than B? You want to dig deeper. Why did that happen? What kind of hidden gems can you find in that data? Did anything surprise you? Did anything perform better or worse than you thought it would? And most importantly, what can you actually do based on what you learned?
Ooh, so it's like being a detective, right? You're looking for clues to figure out why people are behaving the way they are.
That's a great way to put it, yeah. So for example, maybe you'll find that changing the color of your add to cart button got people to click on it more, but it didn't actually lead to more sales. Or maybe you'll find that a certain headline works really well for people on their phones, but not so much for people on their computers. These are the kind of details that can help you improve your whole marketing strategy.
So it's not just about making one change based on one test, right? It's about understanding like the bigger picture and using that knowledge to keep making your store better and better.
Exactly. And then finally, once you've analyzed everything and found the winning variations, you got to implement those changes. But remember, this is an ongoing process. The way people shop online is constantly changing. So you want to keep monitoring your results and keep testing and tweaking things to stay ahead of the curve.
Okay, so we've covered a lot, right? We talked about what A/B testing is, why it matters, when to do it, and how to actually do it. But let's be real, are there any downsides to this? Like, what are some of the challenges? Does Fibr AI talk about that at all?
They do, yeah. They're really upfront about the fact that A/B testing is not like some magic solution. It's a really powerful tool, but it has its limitations.
Yeah.
One of the biggest challenges, especially for smaller businesses, is just how much time and effort it takes. A/B testing can require, special tools, and you need some expertise, and it can take up a lot of your time, especially if you're running multiple texts at once.
Yeah, I can imagine it can be really overwhelming, especially for, entrepreneurs who are already wearing a million hats.
Absolutely. And then there's also the fact that, not everything can be measured with data. Human behavior is complicated. People decide to buy things for all sorts of reasons. Emotions, how they perceive your brand, even like what the weather's like or if they're in a good mood that day. A/B testing can help you see what people are doing, but it can't always tell you why they're doing it.
So the data is just one piece of the puzzle. You got to use your own judgment and your understanding of your customers too.
Yeah, exactly. It's about combining that data with your intuition as an entrepreneur. And speaking of data, we can't forget about statistical significance. Like, if you don't have enough traffic coming to your store, your results might not be accurate. You might think you found something that works, but it could just be a fluke, and then you end up making the wrong decisions.
Yeah, making decisions based on bad data can really hurt you in the long run.
It's like making a huge business decision based on one customer review. It wouldn't do that, right?
Definitely not a smart move.
So you really need to have enough data to make sure your conclusions are solid. And that's why it's so great that Fibr AI focuses on those statistically significant results. They want to help you avoid making those costly mistakes.
Okay, so we've gone through all the ins and outs of A/B testing here, but there's one thing that I'm still kind of curious about. It's that controversial advice Fibr AI gives to avoid testing when your conversions are already high. I want to dig into that a little bit deeper. Like, why would they say that? When does it actually make sense to just step back from testing altogether?
That's a great question. And that's actually where we're going to pick up when we come back. We're going to explore the psychology behind that advice. And trust me, it's more than just, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Yeah. Welcome back, everyone. You know, it's kind of funny to think about how even when things are going well in your store, there's this pressure to always be trying to improve things, always tweaking and optimizing.
It's true, right? You always feel like you could be doing more, like squeezing out just a couple more sales. But as we were saying before the break, Fibr AI has this kind of controversial advice about A/B testing. They actually say sometimes it's better to just not test at all, especially if your conversions are already good.
Right. And to understand why they say that, we got to look at things a little differently. It's not just about the numbers. It's also about understanding how your customers think.
Okay, tell me more about that. What do you mean the psychology of the customer?
All right. So imagine you walk into your favorite coffee shop, right? Everything's familiar. The layout, the menu, the barista who knows your order. It's comfortable. You know what to expect. But let's say they suddenly decide to optimize everything. They move the pastry case. They change the font on the menu. Even the music is different. Now, maybe those are all good changes. You know, objectively, it might be better now. But it feels weird, right? Like it's not familiar anymore. You might even hesitate to order your usual latte.
Yeah, I get that. Like sometimes too many changes can just make you feel uneasy, even if the changes are supposed to be improvements.
That's exactly what Fibr AI is talking about. If your store is already doing well, it probably means your customers are comfortable with it. They trust you. They know how to use your site. They're happy to click that Buy Now button. And if you keep changing things all the time, it might disrupt that flow, you know? It makes things feel uncertain and could actually hurt your conversions.
So sometimes good enough is better than trying to make things perfect.
Exactly. Now, that doesn't mean you should never A/B test when things are going well. But Fibr AI wants store owners to really think about the downsides before they start testing. Ask yourself, what am I actually trying to fix? Is there a clear problem here? Or am I just testing because I feel like I should be testing?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's so easy to get caught up in that always be optimizing mindset that you forget to think about the big picture.
Absolutely. And Fibr AI says that instead of testing all the time, maybe you should focus on other ways to grow your business. Like maybe you should spend more time on content marketing or building your email list or getting more active on social media.
So it's all about picking the right tool for the job, right? Sometimes the best tool is A/B testing. Sometimes it's something else.
Right. And to help you figure that out, Fibr AI actually has this framework. They call it the A/B testing decision matrix.
Yeah.
It takes all these different factors into account. Your conversion rate, how much traffic you get, how much of an impact you think the change you want to test will have, even how many resources you have to actually run the test.
Ooh, a decision matrix. Okay, tell me more about that.
Okay, so imagine a chart, right? On one side, you have your conversion rate, high or low. On the other side, you have the potential impact of whatever you're going to test, also high or low.
Got it. So we have 4 different boxes.
Right. Each one represents a different situation. So let's say you have high conversions, and you don't think the change you want to test will make that big of a difference. That's where Fibr AI would say, hold off on the testing. It's not worth the risk of messing up something that's already working.
That makes sense. What about the other boxes?
Well, if you have low conversions and you think the change you want to make will have a big impact, that's when you go for it. That's a green light for A/B testing. You have a problem to solve, and there's a good chance you can really improve things.
So if sales are slow and you think changing your product page could really help, then go for it.
Exactly. And then there are two boxes where it's not so clear-cut. Like if you have high conversions and you think the change could have a big impact, Fibr AI says to be really careful here. Weigh the risks and benefits.
So in that situation, even though there's a chance you could improve things, you don't want to mess up something that's already working well.
Right. And then finally, if you have low conversions and you don't think the change will make much of a difference, Fibr AI says you should probably focus on something else. Maybe rethink your whole marketing strategy or try something completely new.
I love that matrix. It's such a clear way to decide whether or not to A/B test.
I know, it's great. It really shows you how Fibr AI thinks about optimization. They don't just want to test everything. They want to understand the whole picture. They think about the data, but also the psychology and all the other factors involved.
Speaking of the big picture, this conversation has really changed how I think about A/B testing. It's not just about trying to make tiny improvements. It's about understanding your customers, making smart decisions, and knowing which tools to use and when.
Exactly. And even when you're not running A/B tests, you should always be gathering information and looking for ways to improve. Keep track of your analytics. Pay attention to what your customers are saying. See what your competitors are doing.
So basically, always be learning about your business.
Yeah. Now, before we move on, I want to go back to something we talked about earlier. Fibr AI recommends using their own platform for A/B testing. Can you tell us more about that? Like, why do they like their tool so much? What makes it special?
Yeah, that's a great question. What makes Fibr AI different?
Well, one thing is that it's super easy to use. They designed it specifically for Shopify, so it works really smoothly with your store. You don't need to know any code or be a tech expert to set it up and run tests.
Perfect for busy entrepreneurs who don't have a lot of time to waste figuring out complicated software.
Exactly. It's also really intuitive.
Yeah.
They got rid of all the extra stuff that you don't need and focused on making a dashboard that's clear and easy to understand.
So you can quickly see what's working and what's not without getting lost in a bunch of numbers.
Exactly. Another important feature is that it focuses on statistical significance. They have these built-in algorithms that make sure your results are reliable. So you're not making decisions based on random changes that don't really mean anything.
It's good to have that peace of mind, right? Especially when decisions you make could affect your profits.
Definitely. And then they also have all these helpful tools and resources to guide you through the whole A/B testing process. They have templates for setting up different types of tests, guides for analyzing your results, even a library of case studies to give you ideas.
So it sounds like they really thought of everything to make A/B testing as easy and effective as possible.
They really did. And, oh yeah, did I mention it's free?
Free is always good. Okay, now before we go any further, I just want to make sure our listeners are clear about something. We've been talking a lot about Fibr AI, and they have some great insights, but they're not the only option out there.
Right. There are other A/B testing tools and platforms too. Each one has its pros and cons.
So everyone listening, make sure you do your research, look at the different options, and choose the one that's best for you, your needs, and your budget.
Absolutely. The most important thing is to find a tool that you like using and that gives you the data you need to make good decisions.
Well said. Okay, so I think it's time to switch gears a little bit and talk about some examples of A/B testing in action. I know everyone wants to hear about real situations where these ideas were used to get actual results.
I'm happy to share some. I think a good place to start is with one of the most common problems that Shopify store owners have: cart abandonment. It's so frustrating, right, when you see people add things to their cart and then just leave without buying.
It's like getting all the way to the checkout line at the grocery store and then realizing you forgot your wallet. The worst.
It is. But the good news is, A/B testing can be really helpful for fixing this problem. There are so many things you can try: making the checkout process simpler, offering free shipping, giving discounts.
So it's about finding those little things that make people stop buying and then testing ways to make those things better, right? Like maybe test different layouts for the checkout page. Maybe a one-page checkout works better than a multi-page checkout. Or maybe test different shipping options. Free shipping if they spend a certain amount, or faster shipping for people who need it right away.
Those are great ideas, yeah. And don't forget about things like trust badges and security seals. People need to feel safe when they're buying stuff online. Testing different trust badges or security seals can really help reduce cart abandonment.
Right. It's all about building that trust. Another area where A/B testing can be really helpful is with product descriptions. Those little blurbs of text that tell people about the product. I think a lot of people don't realize how important those are.
It's true. They're super important for convincing people to buy. A good product description should be informative, engaging, and persuasive, all at the same time.
That's a lot to pack into a small space. But A/B testing can help us find the right balance, right? Like, we could test different lengths of descriptions, different tones of voice. We could even try add more pictures or videos.
All great ideas. And you don't need to come up with something totally new for every test. Sometimes just making a small change can make a big difference. Like, you could try moving your call to action higher up in the product description. Maybe that'll get more people to click on it.
It's all about those small improvements that add up over time.
Yep. And don't forget about social proof. Things like customer reviews, ratings, testimonials. Those can be really powerful for getting people to buy. Try A/B testing different ways to show social proof on your product page.
I love these examples.
Yeah.
It really shows you how powerful A/B testing can be, and you don't need to be a data scientist or a marketing expert to do it. Anyone can run A/B tests as long as they have the right tools and a little bit of guidance.
Exactly. It's all about being curious, being willing to experiment, and using data to make smart decisions.
Great. Okay, so as we're wrapping up this deep dive into Shopify A/B testing, I want to leave our listeners with a final question, something to think about.
Oh, I like it. What's the question?
If you were looking at your Shopify store or like maybe a store that you really like, and you could only A/B test one thing, just one thing right now, what would it be? What do you think would have the biggest impact?
That's a tough one. It really depends on, what the store is all about and what their goals are. But if I had to pick one thing that's often overlooked but can make a huge difference, I'd say the checkout process.
Really? The checkout process. Why do you think that's so important?
Well, think about it, right? You've done all this work to get people to your website, they've added stuff to their cart, and then, right when they're about to buy, something goes wrong. The checkout's too complicated, it takes too long, there aren't enough ways to pay, whatever the reason, they give up and you lose the sale.
Oh man, I hate when that happens. It's like you're running a marathon and you trip right before the finish line.
Exactly. And the thing is, even small changes to your checkout can make a big difference in how many people actually complete their purchase. So yeah, if our listeners are trying to decide what to test first, I'd say start there. Experiment with different layouts, make the form shorter, offer more ways to pay, be really clear about shipping costs and how long it'll take to deliver. Just make it as easy as possible for people to buy.
Make it a no-brainer to click that complete purchase button.
Yes. And remember, use your data to guide you. Keep track of how many people are abandoning their carts, see how people are using your checkout page, and use that information to keep making it better.
That's such a good tip. Okay, so focus on that checkout process, make it a priority, and watch those sales go up. Now, before we wrap up completely, there's one more thing I wanted to mention. We've been talking a lot about data and testing and all that, but at the end of the day, it's all about people, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. All those numbers represent real people, people with their own needs and wants. And I think Fibr AI does a good job of reminding us about that human side of e-commerce.
Yeah, it's so easy to get caught up in the technical stuff and forget that we're actually trying to connect with real people.
Totally. So don't just rely on data, use your intuition too, and think about what your customers want.
Put yourself in their shoes, try to understand what they're thinking and what they need, and then use that to create an online store that feels personal and easy to use. An online store that people actually enjoy shopping at.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So as you start doing your own A/B testing, remember to keep that human element in mind. Test things for a reason. Think carefully about your results, and always remember that you're designing for real people.
And don't forget to have fun with it. A/B testing is all about experimenting and discovering new things and making your store better and better.
Awesome. Well, we hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into the world of Shopify A/B testing. We talked about a lot today. The basics, the psychology behind it, practical tips, and even tools to help you get started. Now it's your turn to go out there and experiment. See what you can do to make your online store the best it can be. Happy testing, everyone.
Thanks for tuning in. That's it for this episode of Mind Your Conversions, brought to you by Fibr. I hope you are leaving with fresh ideas and strategies to take your marketing and your conversions to the next level. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave us a review. Thanks for listening. Until then, take care, and we'll see you next time.